After school they came to the place Kim wanted so badly he came with a lie gun instructor. It was the treasure of the Valhalla Academy Constellation room. The guy immediately examined the entire building and its nuances. He saw 2 heavily armed guards at the entrance, then he looked in the other direction and started looking at other places on the other side. There were also 2 guards wearing body armor and carrying firearms. The security here was much more serious than at the main gate. This is logical because this is the room of the Constellation. Its incomparable value allows Valhalla to be one of the 3 most powerful academies. It was not only the guards outside the room that attracted his attention, but also the walls outside. Everything was wrapped in a great concentration of magic. The only place that was free of magical shackles was the main entrance. The boy asked the teacher to answer one of his questions. How can he get to the 2nd floor, and if he gets there will he become a criminal and an enemy of the academy? He will not become a criminal, but the issue of his expulsion will be resolved instantly. In addition, he will say goodbye to his mind before he leaves school. On the 2nd floor, the unrealistic magical power of the Constellation is raging. If he touches it, his mind will not be able to withstand such an outburst, so if he got to the other floor, he would be expelled from the academy and lose his mind. But why did this little decide to ask this question before entering the room? Is he really planning to go down there? Ligon was sure he wasn't that stupid. The first candidate to visit the room wouldn't have done something stupid like that. He was sure the guy was aware of the seriousness of this ban. The instructor said he had 30 minutes, and then he had to leave. The guards let him in, and he said he would be back soon. He needed to get his weapons and memories back at the 3rd level of Valhalla. He didn't care about the bans because he came to Valhalla for this. First, he needs to go to the 3rd floor. There were a lot of stairs in this building. They seemed to never end. The guy confidently walked down these stairs, and when he reached the first crossing, he saw something strange in front of him. There were a lot of cells like in a prison, and on top there was something like a portal. He was sure that the Constellation room was on the ground floor, but he was not sure if it was. In any case, it wasn't that important, so Kim wondered if he needed to go in there. The system appeared in front of him and informed him that all the conditions were met, and he was being transferred to the room. But he was not going to go in. He was sent to the room automatically. He began to disappear into space like a hallucination. Kim opened his eyes and immediately heard a familiar voice. Nearby, was it really Barch? Safe and sound. The guy was confused because he did not expect to meet his old friends. There it was as if Barch had been expecting Kim to come. He was pleasantly surprised that they reunited after 300 years, but Kim did not let him continue his monologue and punched him in the face. It was a very strong and accurate blow that he could not stay on his feet. Kim was very angry, said that he was very happy to see Barch again. He tried to stop Kim and asked her to listen to him, but the guy only wanted him to die and beat him again. On emotion, Barch kept hoping to calm him down and talk to him, but it seemed unrealistic. Kim continued to attack him. Kim said if he asked him to calm down, he would beat him even harder than that. His nerves were breaking down and his brain was not yet realizing how they could meet again. Barch said he was not someone who solved problems with his fists. Kim attacked him again and said that it would be a grave mistake not to use the opportunity to smash his stupid head in because he had ruined his happy future, his wealth, his reputation. He spent so much time teaching his students. Barch asked the guy if he wasn't curious about the place, but he already realized that it was an imaginary world. There was nothing there but them. To be more precise, it is a subspace of relics, and the Barch he saw now was just a reincarnation in the world of space. His real body disappeared 300 years ago. That is according to him. He has always been in this relic. Kim began to think about what this could mean for him. Barch began to smile, because there was only one logical explanation for this. He reincarnated and became a constellation in the future in front of Kim. He looked like a little child begging to be picked up. Kim didn't take this information well and hit Barch again. Security was tight. While Kim was inside, Lee Gun was waiting for the guy to return and hoped that everything would go well and he will not have to look for any explanations to the director of the academy. And then Kim came out looking as if nothing had happened to him at all. The guards checked him with a detector. Ligon asked him if he had done anything strange there, but the guy replied that he had just looked around. He could not go down any further because he might lose his mind. The instructor listened to him and asked him to go to his dormitory. If everything was fine, Kim understood everything, said goodbye to the teacher, and went into the room. As he walked back, he was haunted by thoughts of the Constellation room, and he thought about everything Barch had told him about the place. He didn't care that he had become a constellation. He wanted to hear what interested him. The guy asked if he had created the window for messages, and if so, what it was for, but Barch looked like he was hearing about it for the first time and said he didn't know anything about it. Kim grabbed him by the collar and threatened to continue beating him if he didn't confess. After Kim killed him, he stayed there for 300 years completely powerless. He listened to him and it sounded convincing enough, so he let the guy go. Then he was left with the question of who was sending him these messages. Barch said he had also received similar messages. He received a message that he needed to meet the reborn Kim and get his memories back. For this reason, one very suspicious person appeared. I wonder if this was all done by the person who made him the boss of the Tower of Destruction. If this was done by the person who appointed Barch as the boss of the Tower of Destruction, then he needed to know who he was, but he couldn't say that. Because all the memories associated with him had been lost, he wasn't sure that his memories could come back very quickly. Barch asked Kim what was written in his message. He said that he was asked to find his lost weapons and memories. There was also some kind of inscription on the bottom that was hard to read. It seemed to him that he had regained all his memories because he remembered perfectly what was happening in the tower. Barch said that perhaps this is not all he needs to remember. He has already found his weapon, so the memories should come back naturally. But the guy didn't understand anything because he didn't find the weapon. This subspace was the inner world. 4 types of village swords that became sacred relics. It was because he used one of them as a relic that it became a constellation. Kim really didn't like it when he started bragging about becoming a constellation because it made absolutely no sense because he was there alone in infinite space. He continued to walk to his dormitory while analyzing the information. His village sword turned into a relic with a constellation inside. It was something fantastic and illogical. He wanted to destroy it and throw it out of his memory, but now it appeared in his hands. Just after thinking about it, it didn't matter how weak he was now. Surely Barch, who used to be called the king of the Tower of Destruction, he couldn't leave without the necessary supervision. He could only fulfill a new quest that could only be achieved with this sword. Kim heard a voice behind him asking if he was the same newcomer who had won first place in the entrance exams. This boy said that his elders were away, so now he needed to introduce himself to them. He was a second-year student, the eldest son of the Sun Rays family. Lyric Kim said that he didn't think that bullies like him also had younger ones. Even if he won first place among the newcomers, it's not enough to talk to the elders like that. One of the hooligans asked for permission to teach the newcomer a lesson so that he would not want to be so rude to his elders in the future. He stepped forward and pulled out his broom. It was not clear what kind of weapon it was. Before he could even finish his sentence, he received a powerful kick to the chest. The guy asked him to shut up and attack normally. The bully did not expect this from the newcomer to their academy. He thought that he was just another amateur whom they would beat up and raise their authority. But Kim beat him with all his heart. The guy just couldn't counter his attacks. After another blow, he simply flew into the crowd of his comrades. They failed to catch him because the speed was too high and it happened very suddenly. So he flew as far as the nearest fence and crashed into it. Lyric was very angry because it would hit their reputation very hard. He mentioned that he was asked to do it by Rockdale. He promised to help in any situation if they taught this first grader a lesson. The guy claimed that he had just entered the academy and was a beginner and a failure. He even allowed me to use the weapon and said he would clean up the mess afterwards. His task was to destroy Kim by any means necessary. He agreed and they shook hands. Lyric was sure that this was just another task they needed to complete. It doesn't matter what place he occupied among the first graders. A beginner is still a beginner. He won't be able to cope with the elders in one way or another. Newcomers are very different from the older ones, primarily because of the contract with the Constellation in the second semester. Their first year Valhalla students must visit a Constellation room and sign a contract with one of them. Students who have signed contracts are called contractors and are eligible to move on to the second year. Their studies. A person who becomes a contractor also gets the right to use the power of his or her constellation. Kim did not belong to any of the families and does not have this advantage. It will be very easy to deal with him. You will have to solve this issue yourself. He thought so until his friend was knocked out. He used his sword to defend an attack, but it was so easy for him that he didn't even take it out of the case. One fat hooligan pulled out a knife and started to approach the boy, but before he could even blink, he was hit with a sword handle. His fat body fell to the ground very quickly. From this blow, Kim was attacked by several people at the same time. As soon as he knocked out the red-headed fat man, the next one jumped on him. He grabbed a stick and wanted to strike with it, concentrating his energy in it. He attacked the guy with all his might, but his shot hit the ground completely. Kim dodged without any problems, and the guy couldn't believe it, but he realized that he might already be behind him. And so it was. The guy was standing behind me unharmed. He was hit in the face with his own stick. Lyric was forced to watch Kim throw his jar all over the street because no one can give him even minimal competition. He began to panic and did not know what to do next. It was something incredible. He destroyed the sophomores one by one. Before becoming a contractor, sophomores must prove their superiority over beginners in martial arts. But now the opposite is happening. Almost all the seniors have been knocked out by The newcomer, why were they so helpless in the battle against him, and he also had a very strange fencing skill. From the outside it didn't seem like he was making much effort, but the people around him were flying away one by one. Kim noticed that a few of the hooligans were behaving very strangely. They were ganging up on each other and just wanted to defend themselves, but Kim told them that he would rip off their heads if they did not attack him. Everyone started thinking about what they could do to avoid being attacked. Lyric started yelling at them and said they were losers if they couldn't deal with a newbie. Kim admired the motivational speech of their idiot leader, but when he heard these insults he immediately grabbed his weapon and rushed into the fight. But he did not understand why his body could not move forward. Kim was stopping him with his sword. It looked very funny compared to the evil hooligans they were fighting 10 minutes ago. The guy asked how long he was going to stand in one place, then he transferred some of his energy into the weapon and endowed it with magic. Thanks to this I was able to attack him in close combat. Lyric didn't even realize when he had gotten so close. As a result, he lost consciousness from such a powerful attack. Such a blow could have knocked down at least 3 men. The rest of his gang ran away. Kim went to him and started to wake him up. He slapped him in the face to make him come to his senses. The guy asked who he was, why he came and attacked him. Lyric minimally rose and said that they were studying 1 grade higher. But Kim didn't understand how this was related to the fact that they came and attacked the younger one. Was it really their gang order? He asked to know who sent him. The guy said that they were just trying to humiliate the newcomer who took first place. Kim knew perfectly well that he was lying, so he asked him not to tell him a fairy tale and to confess. Since he wasn't going to tell the truth, Kim decided not to waste time and was about to leave. Lyric told him not to hope that he could continue to attend the academy, as if nothing had happened. No matter what place he held among the newcomers, if people found out about his actions, he would be expelled quickly. Kim did not care at all. He advised me to take care of my own well-being. A few sophomores decided to beat up a freshman, and the latter took them down. If people find out, it will be them who will be ashamed to attend the academy, not him. Kim asked me to think about it if he didn't want to disturb his study idle. These were the last words of the guy. After that he went home while everyone was lying on the sidewalk. Rockdale was looking forward to hearing from his mercenary. Lyric he could call at any time, so he decided not to hide the phone at all, and so he finally waited. Rockdale picked up the phone and asked how Kim was doing. With each word in response his smile began to fade. Lyric said that this job was not for him and he refused it. Rockdale asks what he just said, and Ririk tells him he is staying away from Jujak. Rockdale is confused because earlier Ririk was confident about it. Ririk goes to hang up and Rockdale yells asking him to wait and says if he's saying this because he was beaten up, then he should report it to the administration. And if injuries are still visible, then there's evidence. So can't he do that much? Rockdale tells him if he does that, then he'll give him the full amount, and he'll even try to get his family to fund him. Ririk tells him even if his family supports him, they can't reclaim the honor that they lost, and hangs up on him. Rockdale angrily breaks his phone and asks Yuri if he's contacted Disrat, and she tells him that he's been informed but he's far away, so it'll take a while to get here. He asks her where he is, and it cuts to Mexico at an academy named Aripia. We see a group of defeated students, and we are introduced to Desaraventrek, and he is reading a message from Rockdale asking for him to come meet Jujak, and the reward is already prepared, and Desura is excited that he is going to receive money. It cuts to the next day, and it's the Valhalla training room. Jujak comments that the room is really big, and it puts him in the mood to run. He hears Barky's voice asking why he's here, and Jujak asks where he is, and Barky tells him he's in the sword and asks why he's surprised. Says he was surprised because he thought he made it out of the sword and that he'd have to beat him up again. Barky gets shivers and tells him it's not like that, and Juyok tells him if that's the case then everything is okay, and begins to stretch while asking Barky if he's sure it's okay, and Barky asks if he means a state. Juyok tells him no, and he's talking about this word and how it's become an artifact, and how they took it out of the room. Barky tells him it's no worries since he replaced it with a replica. Juyok says that's what he's worried about and asks how he even made a replica. Barky explains that when he gained consciousness he lost all of his strength, but he could make replicas from the start, and he doesn't know why he has this ability. Juyok begins to stretch backward, and he spots aren't just staring at him. He looks a little surprised. She showed up. She asks if he's going to teach her now, and he tells her no, that they'll focus on her stamina. She asks why, and he tells her if she doesn't want to do it she can leave. He gets her to start with stretching, and he explains that if you improve your stamina the better you can control and absorb mana. And while the current method of training is weird, everyone seems to be investing into their mana before their stamina. Even Erin, while she has a lot of mana, her stamina is low. She finishes stretching, and he tells her it's time for real training, and we see them do a series of physical exercises. And afterward Erin is exhausted, and Juyok tells her they are just getting started, and to stop lying down and to get up and that they still have running to do. She looks devastated. It cuts to Juhyuk in class saying they trained harder than last time. And she has a physique worth developing. She is shivering from DOMS and a teacher tells them all they are having a test today. Were introduced to her and her name is Lilia, she says. While she briefly explained on the first day, she's informed them to self-study on dimensional monsters. So today she'll be testing them and how well they know each monster. It shows everyone taking their test normally except Aaron and Jahyuk. And the teacher says time is up, so pass the test forward. While the test won't add to your grade, it'll be used to measure your ability in the next class. She tells them the next class will be a combat simulation, and she'll see them later. Barky asks Jahyuk if he's sure he can just write his answers like that. And Jahyuk wonders if Barky just watching. Barky says he was. And Jahyuk asks if he's reading his thoughts, to which Barky says he can only hear the ones that involve himself. Jahyuk says he only wrote the answers the way he knew them, and Barky says he understands. It cuts to the teacher's lounge and she is angry at Jahyuk's answers. The regular teacher sees her grading his class's exams and she says they did well. And the teacher looks a little relieved and says he'll be on his way. Then she says Jahyuk's name. And he asks if he didn't put effort in, and she says it's not, that he's just mocking the class, and that it cannot be overlooked, and she'll show him his paper and educate him, because the monsters can't be taken care of that easily. Next week at the combat simulation room, we see the teachers saying most people did well but calls Jahyuk to come forward. He walks up to the podium and she hands him his paper and we see he has a 0. She asks if he's sure he took the test properly and he told her he did. She asks what's the best way to take care of rock goblins, and asks what his answer is, and he reads out stab it in the stomach. She does the same thing with the second question, and he gives her another straightforward answer. And she says he can't be serious and tells him that a rock goblin is B+ for defense. So even normal sword or a doesn't damage it, but he's saying a sword would work. He tells her yes, it's all over in one strike. And she gets angry. She says she understands, and if he's that confident, she'll give him an opportunity. We see her transfer the room and she tells him if he kills the monsters just like he wrote the answers, she'll regrade his points. He says okay and puts his test down and grabs a sword. He walks at the monster and she comments that she's heard of him killing the goblins previously, so she knows he's talented. But a rock goblin cannot be taken care of with any normal sword. The goblin attacks Jahyuk and he rears his sword back, and the teacher is shocked. We see the sword is in the goblin's stomach, and it cracks then disappears, and he looks at the teacher and says they're just stab him in the stomach. We see the other students are shocked. He killed it with a normal sword, and the teacher asks how he did it. He says she saw him do it, just stab it in the stomach. She begins to break down, thinking that only a ranked contractor could kill it with a normal sword, but Jahyuk took it out with a sword, and he asks if his answer was correct. She tells him that was only one question, and she summons the next monster. She explains that jungle goblins are hard to take care of because if you don't do it properly, the first goblin will use a howling skill, and other goblins will appear. So normally a magician would be there to kill them all at once. And while he only sees 3 goblins, there are 5 more behind them, and it'll be hard for him to do this with just a sword. We see him rush and stabbing one in the head, and then another in the head, and before the other can scream, stabs it in the mouth. We see their bodies disappear, and he asks the teacher if the second question was right to it. Cuts to Erin and Jahyuk running on treadmills, and she is gassed out after their session. He asks if her clan trained her, and why she's struggling with just running. She says she doesn't normally push herself like this. He asks how she plans to go up against monsters if she doesn't train properly. She says she just used magic by borrowing her Constellations' power, and Jahyuk confirms his suspicion that they are focusing on magic rather than physical capabilities. However, the risk is big if they keep doing that. He gives some examples of why it is risky, and sometimes how constellations might not even lend power. He asks her if she thinks these exercises are worth it, and she says of course, in a teacher swordsmanship, if she did it, and he says it sounds like she's only doing it because he told her to. Her brain stops working, and he tells her never mind, and they should end it today because they need to go to the academy. He tells her he's going to do another set, and asks if she wants to join, but brain delay kicks back in. So he just tells her to go ahead and go, and she says see you later, and leaves. Barky asks if her name is Erin Choi, and Jahyuk wonders why he's asking. Barky explains that she kept up with his training without complaining, but asks why he decided to help her. Jahyuk says it's because she pestered him so much. Barky asks if he's ever shown her his swordsmanship, and Jahyuk says no, but she might have noticed during class. Barky calls her amusing. Jahyuk says that's why he found her interesting, so he thought he would teach her a little. Jahyuk hears a grunt and looks over to see Sauk benching, and they both just stare at each other awkwardly. Jahyuk asks how long he's been there and Suk says he's been there since the start. He's always exercised before attending the academy as he's leaving. Jahyuk comments that because of the constitution he was born with it. Looks like he's able to train for a long time. Barky asks him why he's interested in Sauk and Jahyuk comments that it's because he's smarter than those who only train magic, and Barky comments. Maybe Jahyuk asks what the constellations even do and Barky says he's not sure. Jahyuk asks if that's all he can say. Barky says well he is a constellation. He's done nothing for the last 300 years so he doesn't know anything, but that he might be able to learn if he finishes his quest. Jahyuk looks at his new quest and wonders about the Eye of the Great Forest and mentions how if it weren't for the quest he was just going to leave after getting his things back, but he has to be stealthy now. Barky comments how he already failed because he beat up the delinquents. Jahyuk says until he clears the quest he can't leave anytime soon, and he can learn about his reincarnation. It cuts to the United Kingdom and we see the Ventric Manor and we see a woman named Adalia who is the vice house owner, asking a butler to tell her what happened. He tells her the labyrinth and the outskirts has been taken care of and that he's thinking of recruiting a few of the men from it. She comments that one of them is strong and the butler tells her that two of them are a rank. She tells him they are at a level deserving of the blessing and to test out their capabilities and send them to her. He says understood and she asks if that's all. He tells her he has some information about Rockdale and he tells her that he called Desura to South Korea, and this angers Adalia. We learn that Desura is his family's problem child and that he's committed a lot of bad acts using the family name, and at 19 he killed 5 people just because they started an argument with him, and at 20 he was cut off from the family and he's been hiding for many years. She tells the butler to keep surveillance on him and inform Rockdale if he's caught doing something weird he will be exiled from the family. The butler takes his leave and we see Adalia say that they are all wielding power they didn't earn themselves and it isn't meant for trash, and in the end the power is all for her, and she looks at a picture of their guardian constellation